Check your bulk.
Yeah, Bobby, Christine, and Lynn are in the back.
How dare you? When do you say how dare you?
Oh, just like when someone does something that's leaves you aghast and you say, "How dare you?" You know how people say that?
Yeah, I do. Yeah. Do you ever do that
Well,
when someone attacks you in Commander?
every time I have to make them feel like I have to make them feel bad about it every time.
Right. I think the comedy in Commander is like the smaller the damage, the bigger the reaction. That's the comedy that you have to go for. So
Yep,
it
yep. A little bit of damage and then have a big reaction.
I've been having trouble dealing with artifact decks. I've been running into a lot of the Shurikai
Uh huh.
Genesis Engine decks, and I'm realizing that vehicles are powerful. If the Shurikai Genesis Engine player has that, I play my board wipe. I can't do anything unless I force them to block. Make their creatures come alive and until end of turn. Then I can board wipe, but it's like you can't do pre-combat board wipes, which is wild. And so I haven't thought about all those the new world of artifacts.
Artifacts are
Finish.
losing their minds. Artifacts are
Yeah.
going in that very same set. We have farewell, I think, which is a nod to how kind of ridiculous it's getting.
Mm-hmm.
And that
Yeah,
makes
that's
me.
true.
I've got this Jandor's ring back in the day when this was what artifacts were.
Mm-hmm. That is. Yep.
Compared Jandor's ring next to fucking Short Guy.
Speaking of artifacts, what about treasures? Do you think New Capenna went too far with treasure?
I think Goldspan Dragon came out in call time.
Broke span dragon. I just mean having the idea of paying for that gold span dragon. I've still yet to like work up the courage to own one of them. So yeah,
And Dockside Extortionist came out way before that.
yeah.
It's just like it was already just like destroyed, and now Nuka Pen is just like throwing pebbles at the rubble. It's like,
Mm-hmm.
all right, I don't know, we've already been here. I'm on the page that I would like it if that 6 mana mythic treasure land generator card was not green. I'm on that page a little bit.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know, something about green being uh, artifact based. I was like, I thought that wasn't their thing, but maybe I'm just old school at this point, and the rules don't apply. That's the rules, you know.
What's the dragon from AFR that's green? Old Gnawbone? Old
I have a pro-
Gnawbone's mono green. Whatever creature you control deals combat damage to a player, create that many treasure tokens. I mean, Gnawbone exists. Gnawbone's.
Metal is like the twisting of nature. It is the metal is so artificial. It's human. It's not nature,
Right.
right? That
Right. You're thinking like it would have been different if it was tap and it was like make an enchantment token, an enchantment treasure token. Like you know how they can label anything a treasure, like an artifact can say
mhm.
dash treasure. There was a little bit of not uproar, but like people are looking at some of the new cards for New Capenna and there's a treasure, it's a treasure artifact, but it doesn't sack for treasure. I think it's like a spoils card,
Right.
something, and it
The only treasure that doesn't do the
right.
specific ability of tap sack for any color.
Right. So people were a little confused by it. They're like, I wish it had the same thing as the food golems had in Eldraine. Like, I wish they had
Totally.
parity on the command. So it makes me think like, okay, we've had parity forever, but what if there was a treasure token, but it was an enchantment? You know what I mean? It's like you're just storing your power in some other way. There's an
Right.
enchantment that comes down that's in green that you can kind of pay extra mana into and then pull stuff off of afterwards. And then it comes back to your hand. So it's kind of like this always, all the time green mana sink. It's almost like treasure, right? It's mana,
Mhm.
but it's an enchantment form. So
It
I mean, like,
seems their solution to the treasure problem was to make more treasure, but that would be great if they could just give us a treasure like mechanic that isn't just buffs artifact decks all day,
mm,
like something else.
Yeah, so many artifacts are getting so much more
Like how you're saying,
power.
like a little treasure enchantment. Why not?
Yeah. Who's to say what a treasure is and where you store mana within the universe, right? Or the ability to produce mana. And
Right.
I think it'd be interesting if it was an enchantment. I mean, an enchantment that you check to see that's also classified as a treasure. You could have cards that target just treasure, in the world now
You
that
get a
would
mana that
hit.
doesn't empty from the pool. Would that you think
Yeah.
they trust us with that, or you think they'd be like, no, they're not gonna they don't want we don't want players to keep track of that. Like
Would you be willing to run one of your experiments? I know you've been running some of your experiments on your Twitter account. Yeah, what was the last experiment that you ran? It's a good one. It was a great question. And you got a lot of perspectives. Some good conversation happening. Stuff that you wish you would find on some place like Reddit when talking about like magic cards. You cultivated a
absolutely.
good group of folk. Yeah.
Yes, I think it was simple, clean discussion. For the tweeters, for the Twitterists, give the following enchantment a mana value. And I was just walking around thinking about a card in my head, just making one up. Here's the card I designed. Whenever you draw an additional card, gain additional life, put an additional counter on a permanent, create an additional token, or take an additional combat step, do each again if it's the first time this turn. And
Mm,
it was really tricky to word, but essentially the intention was if you have an effect that gives you an additional thing such as hardened scales or rites of flourishing, when you get an additional trigger, this enchantment will give you an additional trigger. So it's rewarding you for rewarding yourself. Like,
right.
and I asked people to what would be the mana value of this, and a lot of people, of course, took the combat step part of it, and they said it'll be red. They took the permanent and token part. They said it'll be green. That makes sense. Um, there were some very interesting answers. Multiple people actually replied with mono white, which I thought was interesting. Which my
Oh, maybe.
personal answer to this, surprisingly, actually, I was thinking this would be a great mono white enchantment because
Hmm.
it goes out of its way to do like support, like to reward you for being devoted to something basically.
Right.
And even though the effects colors are all over the place, i think I think the fact that it doesn't give you these effects, it only gives you these effects if you've got these effects,
Right.
is like a devotion like mechanic that fits for mono white. Giant ran aside, a lot of people also answered colors, all colors. Most people answered some variation of like many colors. What do you think? Did you have a thought about what this might
No,
cost?
I thought it would cost $12.89 on TCG Player is what I thought because it seems like the card that would
Yeah.
be slapped down on a Game Nights episode and everyone would lose their pants. You know what I mean? When
Uh-huh.
they saw it because it would be
Uh-huh.
like, "Oh my god, this person's winning and now they're going to win some more." Um
Exactly.
it
Yeah.
it kind of feels like any time that I see someone pulling off a strionic resonator, on the battlefield, or parallel lives or something like that, some of those
Yep.
type of effects. Whenever I see that on the battlefield, I think to myself, oof, it's going to get rough, right? Because it's about to happen at a rate, a rate fast enough that it would kill, in Commander. And I
Mhm.
feel like Anointed Procession, another card that you described, would have enough gas or give someone enough gas to just
Anointed
overtake a
procession.
3-player game. Yeah.
Absolutely. Or that gives me that's like red alert cards. I'm gonna cast anointed procession. Warning, warning.
Sure, because whatever is about to happen is about to get doubled. We saw that with Anna's game when she had a Smothering Tithe and an Anointed Procession, I believe. And the
Oh no.
only thing keeping her in check was a rule of law. She had like hundreds and hundreds of treasures. And I think I wheeled a few times. And so I remember, oh my goodness, it was a stack of treasure she couldn't spend. It was just burning a hole in her, in her on her battlefield.
The original
Yeah.
version of this tweet, it said legendary enchantment, but I kept trying to work with the templating and I had to delete it because I ran out of space. But also, it doesn't have to be as well, so I was like, whatever.
Mm-hmm. So do
I
you
want to do
think,
more experiments like this. Did you have what you had one in mind?
could treasures be enchantments?
Design a mechanic that is like treasure, but not attached to an artifact.
And my thought is like, would people be less upset or sort of less shaken, not upset, but just kind of shaken by the change in what feels like, the color pie by giving green artifacts? Would it feel less shaken up if it instead, when you played a green card that does this, it made enchantment treasures instead of artifact
Right.
treasures?
I think that would be interesting.
Sure.
We got it. We got
Yeah.
our next little experiment. I'm gonna flesh this out.
Yeah.
I would love an alternative to treasure. It's a bit much, and it's samey, and it's like okay, every like deck and every theme in the multiverse is like about like treasure chests and gold and stuff. Like no, there's got to be like some more like flavor to work with here.
I don't know if Magic needs to innovate. I think they'll just make treasures. My thought is that they're just going to punish us all in the next set, right? In my head, it's usually that. It's that I'm not saying they're trying to create a climactic, dramatic, climactic sort of moment. But I love that everyone's
Hmm.
complaining about treasures. I love that everyone's complaining about artifacts because, like, that
Hmm.
gives me that sort of thought that like Wizards is probably going to affect it in the next set, right? They know that these sets are going to play together possibly, so we want to find some interesting lines between them or some crossover. And maybe the Brothers War is that like the return to artifacts having punishment on entry, artifacts having punishment on exit, artifacts having punishment, upkeep
Token
costs and
generation.
yeah,
Getting
token
some
generation
punishment.
damage, yeah, all that stuff. I feel like that's gonna come back. I mean, we already have some of those already in the format, but
I I also wouldn't be surprised if maybe not even just from like feedback might play some part into it, but I bet we'll see a slowdown on treasures a little bit after Baldur's Gate
oh, I
because it
feel
made
yeah,
sense in AFR. You know, you're on a dungeon quest, you get treasure. It made sense in
yeah,
Call Time. All right, these Vikings, this Old Norse, like it just I don't know. To me, it made sense in Call Time, and it
right,
made sense in New
sure,
Capenna because you're in a city, and like that's how they're gonna
sure,
represent straight up money and like
yeah,
goods and stuff. So it makes sense there, and it's so at least it's thematically. It's I think Strixhaven's probably where it's not been necessary to have the treasure in
mm-hmm,
the way that it was, but at that point, it's
right.
sandwiched in between all these treasure-rich sets. It's kind of hard to blame them.
So pick of the bulk in and around treasure. Do you think there's something
There is probably a
card
Hellkite
experiment?
Igniter in your bulk, and if you're gonna drown yourselves in some treasure, I think you could just kill somebody with this card.
5 red, dragon creature,
Mm-hmm.
5/5, flying haste, 1 in a red. Hellkite Igniter gets +X+0 until end of turn, where X is the number of artifacts you control. Oh, I thought.
Hey, hey,
Whoa.
hey, hey,
Oh my
hey, hey,
goodness. Bobby
hey.
Christine.
Magna. That's not like Magna's little best friend. I mean, we play casual magic, so I'm sure they don't play Hellkite Igniter, but we could play Hellkite Igniter because we're cool.
That you could finish someone's life off with. I
That's
mean,
what I'm talking about.
you'd have 7. So you hard cast it for like all your mana. What if you got you got a free cast from Magda? Oh, that cost you 5 the
Oh,
treasures anyways.
damn.
But you know what? You free cast it from Magda, and then I see it because then you have like at least 3 times you could tap this with like maybe 5 more treasure left. Yeah, I will just hit you for 20 right now, right now.
I'm convinced Hellkite Igniter is some bulk.
Oh,
One more bulk pick in red, of course. If you've opened Commander Legends product, got a Dargo hanging around.
oh
And this
yeah.
guy may be popular amongst the CDH crowd, but like I think your average commander players is like 7 mana for a big old like pirate. But no, this guy, you pretty much the idea is to pay 1 for him every time because you're drowning yourself in treasure.
I've got 2 choices for check your bulk for treasure. The first one's Bucknard's Everfull Purse. It's 2 colorless artifact, 1 and tap. Roll a d4 and create a number of treasure tokens equal to the result. The player to your right gains control of Bucknard's Everfull Purse. I've had that come up in a few games, and I'm not saying it's like the best experience ever. Some people destroy the bag before their friends can get to it. Ahem, ahem. But I do think it's fun. in terms of a way to kind of like bring the table together and kind of like show a more social hanging out environment. It helps smooth the curve for a few people if they're land blocked. You know what I mean? It'll eventually will get to them.
Mhm.
So it feels like that fun kind of social card.
I think we had a fantastic time with this card. It is it's yeah, no, this is the card for hanging out. This was great. And you know what?
Sure.
I took that purse away from all of you.
That's sure. Now,
And it felt good.
it did. It did feel good. I think it was great. I think I've done that before too, like broken the coveted jewel. You know, I think those are good things to do every once in a while to destroy all
Sometimes the
that.
drama is just, ooh, it's just worth it. You just
Yeah,
gotta do it for the drama, baby.
you're right. You're totally right. I agree with you. Bucknard's Ever Full Purse could also play into some of the ideas of like an anti-treasure attack where you're like giving your opponent treasures or artifacts and now you're taking advantage of the fact that they have those artifacts, right? So
Nice.
that's something it could play into. Which brings me to my second bulk pick is Wanted Scoundrels. It's 1 and a black, and it's a human pirate 4/3. So it's like, why is this so discounted? 1 and black for a 4/3 human pirate? It says when Wanted Scoundrels dies, target opponent creates 2 treasure artifact tokens, you
Oh,
know. And I have been thinking about this card in both a hangout sense and also like a malicious sense, right? In the future, I love that it has a death cost associated with it. I love its story, the behind it, of like what it all sort of conveys. I
yes.
I have found that in Commander games recently where we are teaming up against one other player, and not every game, but nearly every game, someone has said, if I only had one more mana, I'd be able to do something
Mhm.
about this. And this is a way that you can share mana if you're not going to play with victory bells or some other things. So it
Mhm.
seems like a fun card in the sense of like, we can put this piece on the battlefield and then I could give you that treasure. So it could be a good
I love
politicking
it.
tool.
I've never seen this card before. I absolutely love it. I've found myself in several situations where my best bet of dealing with a player who's absolutely gone bananas, BANANAS, is another
Mm-hmm.
player. Like that, like another player is my only chance to deal with this one player. Like, cause I
True.
got straight up nothing like on what's going
Yeah.
on. This other player next to me, they might actually have something.
Mm-hmm.
So here's my wanted scoundrels. Like, hey, I'm gonna attack you with this guy. You go and block it. You get those 2 treasures, and see if we can do anything about this. I like it. Oh, you know
Actually.
what'd be fun? Photoshopping our little faces on the scoundrels.
Sure. That'd be funny. Oh my goodness. Wanted scoundrels. Yeah, that would be good.
This is our kind of commander. We'll give you treasure. We'll punch you, and then we'll give you some treasure.
Yeah, right. Right, exactly. I think
We'll reward you for letting us punch you.
right. Yeah, exactly. Like, yeah, a little give and take is rewarded here with treasure.
One final check your boat. It's about $1. March of the Machines. 4 costs blue enchantment. Each non-creature artifact is an artifact creature. Power and toughness equal to the mana value. Your treasures are now 0/0s. Upon entry, state-based treasures become 0/0s, instantly destroyed. I'm into that.
Right.
I made a
I'm
post
into
on
it.
Twitter recently actually about anti-treasure tech, and someone pointed this out to me. And people got heated into that argument. They're like, this is useless. You're looking this you think this is gonna stop treasure people? This is way too slow. And I'm just like, I don't know. I don't know. I'm trying to play Commander where this is a solid solution. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Check Your Bulk is a Bobby Christine and Lynn Frank production. You can find Bobby Christine on Twitter at BOBBIECHRISTXNE. And you can find Lynn Frank on Twitter at Lynn V. Frank.